In Fallout's post-apocalyptic Wasteland, there's no shortage of skirmishes. Raider gangs clashing over territory, rogue robots rampaging through a settlement, or rival caravans coming to blows over a few measly caps. It's another thing altogether for the Wasteland to erupt in full-scale war. But happened it did, with the Titans of the West Coast finally coming to blows. The power-armored might of the Brotherhood of Steel pitted against the rising star of the new California Republic. A technologically advanced order of knights in shining armor versus an honest-to-God post-war nation-state, with all the power and wealth that entails. No one really knows how the war started. By all accounts, the relationship between the two factions had been warm enough, with both chipping in to rid California of the last remnants of the genocidal enclave following the events of Fallout 2 and the destruction of their offshore oil rig. A few years down the line, however, the two former allies were at each other's throats. By the 2250s, the Brotherhood was in decline, and the NCR, emboldened by annexation after annexation of the surrounding settlements and regions, was on the rise. Those intent on clinging to power in the Brotherhood doubled down on their mission of technological preservation and control in a bid to hobble the new nation, with its diplomats in the Republic's capital posing an ultimatum. The new world might be yours, but the old one is ours. Any caches of advanced pre-war tech in the NCR's borders would be confiscated by the Brotherhood, everything from laser rifles and combat robots to vital medical technology. Though the NCR didn't rely on these weapons and tools as much as the Brotherhood, this would still slow their expansion considerably, and their newfound sense of national pride was at stake. In one swift stroke, their embassy in Shady Sands was closed, and the diplomats were sent packing to their bunkers to bring the elders the Republic's reply. They would not accept any meddling from the Brotherhood, and would respond with armed force should they try. Infuriated by the disrespect levied at them by this upstart power, the elders of the Brotherhood of Steel formally declared war on the new California Republic. Anyone who knows anything about Wasteland politics would assume that this would be a one-sided slaughter. The Brotherhood of Steel is known for their nigh-invincible power-armored knights and paladins able to wade through a hornet's nest of enemy fire and come out the other side without a scratch. They are also able to bring their huge stockpiles of energy weapons to bear against their foes on the battlefield, with laser rifles, plasma casters, and Gatling weapons of every stripe. And should their opponents prove too much to handle, they could always retreat to their bunkers, able to last for years, safely entombed beneath 30 feet of reinforced concrete and steel. It was with these last advantages that the Brotherhood was able to inflict heavy losses on the NCR in the initial stages of the war. Striking quickly from their bunkers, entire town garrisons were wiped out in days, even hours. There was very little the average NCR soldier, armed with nothing more than a service rifle and a few grenades, could do against a power-armored assault screaming in from across the wastes. The gains the Brotherhood made in the first weeks and months of the war were immense, with captured energy weapons, munitions, and other technology flowing from the looted NCR stockpiles into their many bunkers scattered across the wasteland. They didn't occupy the territory like an invading force, preferring to ransack an area for its tech before retreating back to their bunkers. While kinder to civilians than the likes of raiders, it was a disturbing parallel, the knights in shining armor turning their weapons on a society of farmers and ranchers. After their initial blitz, however, the Brotherhood began to run into some issues. Though each of their knights was more than a match for a dozen NCR soldiers, every once in a while they would fall in battle or run afoul of ambushes. Cunning defenders who came to understand that their rifles were next to useless could rely on landmines, satchel charges, tripwire bombs, and other booby traps to incapacitate or even kill power-armored foes. As the war continued to drag on, the NCR refused to surrender, even after their seemingly crippling losses in the early stages. The NCR, for its part, was no ragtag group of freedom fighters, nor just a gang of well-stocked mercenaries. They were a fully fledged nation-state, complete with towns, farms, a standardized currency, and even factories cranking out new goods. They had a professional standing army, supported by an organized network of militias and supply caravans that crisscrossed their territory, moving orders, supplies, and troops quickly across the wasteland. They had a steady supply of fresh recruits, either volunteers from the many towns under the Republic's control or conscripts forced into service during the later parts of the war. Unusually large and stable for a post-war society, the NCR had hundreds of thousands of citizens at the time, with more being born and annexed every day. When compared to the Brotherhood, who very rarely recruited outsiders and keenly felt every knight or paladin lost, the NCR could afford to throw waves of soldiers into the meat grinder. Another advantage that the Republic could enjoy was its sheer size. It surrounded the Brotherhood bunkers completely with its own territory, separating and isolating each stronghold. If the chapters wanted to support one another against an NCR siege, they would have to slog through 100 miles or more of hostile territory to do so. Doing so was no easy feat in the later stages of the war either. for the Republic had a secret weapon up its sleeve, a little organization called the Gunrunners. Originally a criminal gang operating out of the trading city of the Hub, the Gunrunners changed their business model with the times, from smuggling weapons to building them. Now headquartered in the Los Angeles Boneyard, the Gunrunners operate an enormous factory, converting salvage and raw materials imported from the wider Republic into a vast range of deadly weapons. Where the Brotherhood had to carefully ration every bullet and energy cell expended in the war, with no real way to replenish them, the Gunrunners could provide a practically endless stream of bullets, explosives, and heavy weapons for the NCR. The heavy weapons in particular were valuable for the war effort, with Gunrunner rocket launchers, landmines, and anti-material rifles claiming an ever-increasing tally of knights and paladins. As the war dragged on year after year, the balance of power began to swing in the NCR's favor. Most of the Brotherhood's most experienced paladins were dead, their power armor claimed by the enemy. Untested knights and scribes were being sent against an increasingly competent foe, and were beginning to lose ground. Something had to be done. Following an emergency meeting of elders, the Brotherhood of Steel would change tactics, planning a daring raid to the very heart of the Republic's capital. It was not weapons or technology that was in their sights this time, but something much more valuable to their enemy. When the vertibirds touched down amid the wailing of alarms and the demolitionists cracked open the mighty vault at the heart of Shady Sands, they found it. A glittering cache of that most valuable of metals, which had, since the dawn of history, driven men to war and decided the fates of nations, the NCR's entire supply of gold. And they destroyed it all. Without gold backing their currency, the Republic went into an immediate freefall. No one trusted NCR money now that there was nothing backing it up. In a desperate attempt to finish the Brotherhood before collapsing into complete economic ruin, multiple bunkers were besieged simultaneously, with the Republic using explosives, poison gas, and human wave tactics to breach at least 6 chapters, resulting in their complete destruction. In a final act of defiance, 4 of these 6 would self-destruct shortly after their capture, killing all inside and denying the NCR any use of the bunker or the technology within. With more than 2/3 of their strongholds destroyed or occupied, the remaining Brotherhood of Steel retreated to their deepest and most well-defended facilities, including their sprawling underground capital at Lost Hills. By this stage in the war, decades had passed, and tens of thousands had been killed in action. The Brotherhood had been reduced to a bloody pulp, confined to their bunkers and effectively banished from the surface, having lost all ability to project power into the wider Wasteland. Likewise, the NCR had been crippled by the Brotherhood's golden gambit and the sheer losses they had been able to inflict upon the Republic's population. Nevertheless, they gained the upper hand and were able to slowly recover. By 2274, they had spread east across the Mojave Wasteland, crushing any scattered Brotherhood resistance they encountered. The Mojave chapter, long since established in the Hidden Valley bunker, attempted to hold the region against the onrushing NCR, making a stand at the Helios 1 power plant. It was a massacre. Using the tactics they had honed out west, the Republic's forces drained their ammunition and split their attention with skirmish tactics before a full-scale assault drowned the defenders of Helios, outnumbering them 20-1. Badly beaten, the Mojave chapter copied their western kin, retreating to the safety of their bunker, too fearful of discovery to send out more than a scouting party or two into the howling, hostile desert. With a decisive victory seemingly achieved, the NCR busied itself with other business and other wars, slowly rebuilding its economy from the brink of ruin, and embroiling itself in another conflict, this time with Caesar's Legion, a huge army of slaves out of Arizona. Even then, their recovery wasn't complete. Faith in the Republic's might was shaken, with many refusing to do business in NCR dollars, and bottle caps, backed by water instead of gold, returned to circulation as the currency of choice in the Wasteland. Then, just as all seemed well with this new order, the unthinkable happened. Unknown to either the Brotherhood or the NCR, Vault-Tec, the creators of the series of iconic vaults, detonated a nuclear bomb under the Republic's capital in 2288, reducing it to a smoking crater in an instant. This unexpected attack sent the NCR reeling, completely abandoning their heartland in Southern California by 96. As the land's previous owners retreated, the Brotherhood finally began to emerge from their bunkers, joined by reinforcements from the east. Spurred on from the East Coast chapter's expansionist agenda, they began to aggressively assert control over California, filling the power vacuum left by their decimated enemy. Their dominance over California was solidified after the battle for Griffith Observatory in the outskirts of the Boneyard. Competing with the NCR remnants in the region for an experimental piece of cold fusion technology, the decisive clash went in the Brotherhood's favor. With their enemy's main advantages of manpower and manufacturing taken out of the equation, Knights and Paladins were easily able to roll over the under-equipped and desperate defenders of the observatory. As of that fateful assault, the war between the new California Republic and the Brotherhood of Steel is still ongoing. with almost 50 years of off-and-on conflict ravaging the Wasteland. Both have had their ups and downs over the years, though it now seems that the Brotherhood's knights have an ironclad upper hand. It's important to remember, however, that the NCR was not just one city, and likely maintains a strong presence outside of Southern California. And if the Brotherhood hopes to press its advantage, they will once again have to strive against a fully equipped, trained, and ready army. Who truly knows how the Wasteland's longest and bloodiest war may finally end?